you responded that you worked in the survey. Can you describe one of your colleagues that you work with? What does she look like?
Yes, I can describe one of my colleagues. One of the colleagues I work with is a man from Argentina, and he's a very interesting person because he can speak many languages. We often speak, particularly at lunch, about his experiences in the world and how he learns his languages. And I think that I enjoy being with him because he motivates me to work much harder. And I think that this person, his name is Miguel, is the person I would most like to be with in my work.
You indicated you work. Please give me a description of the company you work for. What is the name of the company? What kind of business does it do? Where is it located? Give me a detailed description of your company.
Yes, I work for Sony. I work for Sony in various locations in Tokyo, and I'm the vice president of Sony in charge of new ideas. And so it is my responsibility to hold meetings each week where I direct people in my group to help me to come up with many ideas. And after we've come up with an idea, we would then present that idea to our superiors, who would then consider whether this idea is practical. And if it is practical, then we would try to get funding to put this idea into action. So a lot of our planning and our procedures are based in the Tokyo office, but we often travel to other countries to meet with other co-workers who share our ideas and help us to brainstorm.
You indicated you work. What kind of project do you normally work on?
That's a good question. Actually, I work on so many projects, it's difficult to choose just one. But if I were to choose one project, I would choose our project to land on the moon. And we already have a spaceship that has been prepared, and our Sony rocket is really fantastic. We're all very proud of it. We're planning a launch next week, and some people say that it's doomed and it's in big trouble because we actually we lost one of our rockets, and we were not able to find it. But hopefully by next week we'll be able to find the rocket, and we'll be able to launch on time. I would say this is our most important project.
Tell me how you get from your house to work every day from beginning to end. How long does it usually take to get to work?
That's a good question. I live very far away from my work. It's about 300 kilometers, which is unusual for most. If I get up very early, I'm able to have breakfast and go to the station and take the bullet train, which is called the Shinkansen in Japanese. But because I'm an executive, they send a helicopter for me in the morning, and it lands on my roof and picks me up. And I'm able to have breakfast on the helicopter. And sometimes, if I'm really in a hurry, they allow me to drop from the helicopter directly into my window. There's been a few accidents, but generally I've been okay.
You indicated your work. Describe one of the interesting projects that you have worked on from beginning to end.
Yes, good question. One of the most interesting projects I've worked on was the development of a new cockroach spray. I work for a company called Gokijet Pro, and in this situation we were challenged to build a spray that could kill any cockroach within 3 seconds. And it was a very difficult project, one of the most challenging aspects of that project was finding human volunteers to try to receive the spray without a mask. We had a few accidents and some hospital admissions, but generally it was a success and I'm very proud of it.
You indicated that you work. Where is your office located? And can you tell me what your office or workspace looks like in as much detail as possible?
Yes, I can tell you about where I work. Well, first I'd like to tell you about where I used to work. I used to work in downtown Shinjuku, which was quite easy to get to on the Chuo line. And I went out the central exit for that. And I used to work in a very busy office with many people next to me. We worked with the Japanese style office with the section chief sitting at the front, and we were all sitting in front of him, which was not very comfortable because you're not able to hide. But now our present office has moved underground, which is very nice. We are now have an office which is in a secret office, actually, which is in a section close to the Namboku line. What happens is you enter the Namboku station and you go down the escalator, and at the bottom of the escalator you go into a secret room, and which will then take us down about 1 mile, and at 1 mile below the surface of the subway is where you will find our office. But I can't tell you the details because it's secret.
What can you see when you look outside your office window? Describe what it looks like outside your office in much details as you can.
Yes. Well, as I told you, working at PricewaterhouseCoopers is quite a privilege because we have a wonderful view. And at Shiodome, we are able to look out and see the Conrad Hotel, which is right in front of our window. In addition, we can see many roads and underpasses and overpasses and people walking up and down the street. One of the things I'm most worried about is the fact that we cannot escape from there if we need to. This is one thing that I always think about when I'm looking out the window. But the view is so beautiful that I don't think much about the danger.
You indicated in the survey that you work. What is your normal workday like? Please describe your typical day at the office.
Well, my office day is quite unusual in that I work in a hospital, and as the chief of neurosurgery, we have many types of patients with traumatic injuries. Some of them are skull-based injuries, and some of them are spine-based injuries. And we first have to assess the seriousness of the injury, and then we would use a combination of nurses and doctors and surgeons to take care of this patient. My typical workday begins at 7 a.m. and finishes around 3 a.m. in the morning, but sometimes I have to sleep in the hospital.
I'd like to know about any training you had to get to do the work at your current job. Please tell me about an orientation or workshop you had to take when you started working.
Yes. Well, as I said, I am an engineer in my company, and it is my responsibility to fix machines when they break. In particular, I have to fix machines at Disneyland when they go wrong. And part of the training was taking apart roller coasters. And we had to, for example, Space Mountain. Space Mountain is something that most people have ridden on. But in order to understand how it works, we actually had to go in to Space Mountain and take apart the roller coaster piece by piece and put it back together, which is a very unusual training. But as a result, we were able to learn the inner workings of the roller coaster, and now I consider myself an expert in roller coasters.
You indicated in the survey that you work. Describe your manager or boss to me in detail. What kind of person is he or she?
Yes, that's a good question. My boss is a very violent person who causes bodily injury on a daily basis. And we often have physical fights and verbal arguments. So many of the employees have training in martial arts and wrestling, and we find it very useful to defend ourselves when he attacks us. On a recent occasion, a client angered him, and he picked up a refrigerator and threw it at his head. But luckily, he used a good block, and as a result, he was able to avoid personal injury.
Tell me about the project that you recently completed. What were the steps you took in order to begin and finish the project?
Yes, that's a difficult question. I have so many projects on my desk at the moment. One of the projects I just finished was organizing my desk, and my boss asked me to organize my desk because it's such a mess. It took me about 3 weeks to organize my desk. First, I organized my left drawer, then I organized my right drawer, and then I organized the middle drawer. It was a very tough assignment. It took a long time, and I had to restart it many times. But the process of learning how to organize my drawers was very good for me.
There must have been a time when you worked to solve a problem at work. Think of one of those times and describe the challenge and tell me what you did to overcome it.
Yes. Well, as I said, I'm a presidential advisor to President Obama. And as his main advisor, it was my responsibility to decide what we should do about ISIS. And it was such a big problem that it was beyond the scope of my understanding. So I had to talk with many advisors, and as a result, we decided that education and planning and some form of cooperation was the only way to solve the problem. But still we find that that group has a lot of influence, and we're finding that it is a problem that still is ongoing. So some things are not successful, but we try to always attack each problem with a positive attitude.
What do you usually do at work? Do you read email or attend meetings? What else do you do at work?
That's a good question. At work, most of the time I'm responsible for the daily operations of the office. As the HR manager, it's my responsibility to make sure that the employees are really working and not just pretending to work. So we operate cameras and watch to see that the hands are really moving and that the voices are really speaking into the phones, because we find that a lot of the employees are spending too much time on Facebook and YouTube. And so my responsibility a lot of the time is surveying and interviewing and tracing employees' activities to make sure that they are doing the right thing.
tell me what your boss does on a typical day. What are some of his or her responsibilities?
Well, my boss is actually an astronaut, and although people don't know it, my boss often travels to other planets, and he's a very capable astronaut, able to fly, pilot the space shuttle, and in addition, he likes to play golf, and he plays golf at Pebble Beach in California. And one of his specialties is cheating, and he's able to trick his opponents, and he's able to win most of his games, which I think is really impressive.
You indicated you work. Tell me the different jobs you have had. What did you do at each job? Tell me all the details, please.
Yes, well, I've had many jobs in my life. My first job was working in a donut shop. I was selling donuts, but unfortunately I was fired from that job because I was not very good at working the cash register. Then I worked as a security guard, and as a security guard, it was my job to guard houses and apartments that were quite violent. And I used to wear a gun, and actually, even though I was supposed to protect the apartment complex, I was afraid for my own life because the people who were living in the apartments were quite violent. So in addition to those jobs, I've also worked as a doctor, and I've worked as a policeman and also a pilot. None of these I had licenses for. I just pretended to be them, and I was able to work there secretly.
You indicated you work. When you go to work, where do you usually eat lunch? Who did you eat lunch with? Tell me as much as you can about lunchtime at work.
Yes. Well, actually, our workspace is quite unique in that we're allowed to cook our own food on the premises. We have a hamburger stand and we have a pizza oven. So one of the popular activities is to make pizzas at lunch. Some people bring their own lunch, some people go out to lunch, but the most popular activity is making pizzas. So some people bring their own ingredients, but generally the company prepares all the ingredients for making pizzas, and we use the oven daily, and as a result, we're all very satisfied.
Tell me about one particular experience. What do you had? Whether weather or traffic or some other problem caused you to arrive late. Explain the problem. What did you do in response? And how did things turn out?
Yes, well, the weather is a big problem, and I think that a lot of employees arrive late due to the weather. And although I'm embarrassed to say it, usually the weather is not really the reason I'm late, but I use the weather as an excuse to explain why I'm late. One of the best excuses is there was a rainstorm and my umbrella broke, and I was shocked by an electric shock, by lightning. That one works very well. In addition, I have had success in using the sunburn excuse to say that the sun was very hot and I burned my face and I had to go to the hospital to get some medicine. I think that the weather is very convenient for explaining why I have arrived late at work.
Meeting a new boss is always memorable. Think about the first time you met your current manager. What was said? Tell me the details of the first meeting.
Yes, my current manager, Mrs. Jones, I remember our first meeting very well. First, we met in the lobby of our office, and then she invited me to go to dinner in New York. So we went to Haneda Airport, then we transferred to Narita Airport, and then we went to New York and spent 2 weeks together on a wonderful vacation in New York. And as a result, we got married, and unfortunately we divorced 2 years later. But it was a wonderful experience meeting my first boss, and even now we stay in touch as friends.
And you indicated at your work, what kinds of education programs are offered at your company? What staff or department provides the programs?
Yes, we have many education programs at our work. Most of them are very boring, but we try to enjoy them. Particularly, we find that we have to do retraining for jobs that we already know how to do, and these are the ones we try to avoid. And we have many good excuses for avoiding these jobs, such as I feel sick today, or I have to go to my son's soccer appointment. But some of them are actually good. For example, learning how to operate the coffee machines and how to sweep the floor. I found that one of the best skills I gained in a company training exercise was how to mop the floors.